It's episode 4. Episode 4. Okay. All right. So let's begin. So thank you, Ed, for joining me for episode 4. I was supposed to have, I think I told everybody for episode 3 I was going to have Jeff on, but Jeff is apparently at a wedding this weekend, so I won't be able to get him until you and then Razor, and then I'm going to get Jeff after. Cool. So yeah, you're part of the one of the guys in the intro of my show, the trailer. I wanted you to get some limelight in there.
Thanks.
Yeah, man, I think what you do is pretty cool. So, just the introduction. You are a writer for Frontproof Media, Sherdog, right? And then you just said 2 more other ones?
Yeah,
or?
MMA News and My MMA News.
Yeah, so you're all over for MMA coverage, and writing pieces on fighters and pretty much just being a great MMA analyst. Like that's your niche right now. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I actually didn't even know. I think I discovered you when I was watching one of the UFC
press conference. Yeah, 205 press conference.
And then you stood up and you're like, "Hi, I'm Ed," and I was like, "Wait a second, I know him."
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And you're like, "Yeah, I'm from Frontproof Media," and you just started, going on and asking your questions. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So I was like, I gotta get Ed, on this thing. And so thank you so much for doing an episode.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
that's funny because when that happened. So, I mean, when you cover anything in that aspect, you shouldn't make yourself the spotlight. So I had no idea that they were shooting the crowd. That's how a lot of people found out about it. It's funny because it was not so, I didn't necessarily want to keep it a secret because, you get people, oh, can you get tickets and stuff like that. I didn't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully I never did, but when that happened, it was weird because I did that. I remember that was midweek. And then, I went to training and everybody was, saying, "Oh, we saw you on TV." And I was just like, and then of course I'm worried. I'm like, "Who saw me on TV? What? What'd I do?" But yeah, that's definitely a lot of people. That's actually my Twitter profile photo is from that. That was a 205. I think that was a 205 ticket sale announcement presser. Okay. That was right in the theater, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Wow. That was which one was that? Chris Weidman.
Chris Weidman was there. That was 205. So Weidman was there. Connor was there.
That was a big one.
That's where
the huge
who the f is that guy? That's where that happened.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. So I mean, you are now BJJ Black Belt. You got your black belt from Brian. How long ago? I think
September 19th.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
And I know you've told me that you've had tremendous just studying in martial arts since you were a kid. You have a pretty big background in martial arts. What I guess the first question I'd like to get into is what got you into martial arts? Like, what is the first? What's that spark? Like, what got you into it?
It's cliche, but it's common with my generation. But growing up in the as a child of the '80s, you watched a lot of Bruce Lee movies, so everybody wanted to be Bruce Lee. So I forgot how young I was, but I started Taekwondo when I was 6 or 7 years old, and my father had his own business. So I mean, when you're a kid and your parents put you in something, you really don't have the choice of how I'm going to get there. Either they're going to keep bringing you or they're going to stop bringing you. And my dad running his own business, it got to the point that it was just it's funny, I just drove past the place that's still there.
Well, where is it?
The YB Choi's.
Oh, YB Choi, that's so funny. Sung and Ella, they went there before they came over.
Yeah, but I'm talking I went there as a little kid.
Oh, wow.
And I liked going there. I knew right away that I loved martial arts. But my father was like, it was getting expensive, and he's like, I can't make the drive. I have the business because he was, he hasn't worked for anyone most of his adult life when he opened the restaurant business. So he he was just like, I can't keep bringing you there. So, but I knew I wanted to do it. So as soon as I started making a little bit of my own money, I was 16 years old, and I was working in the restaurant. But I had the days that I could do stuff. I started kickboxing in high school because I was like, I like martial arts. I'm gonna do it. So, and I stuck with kickboxing, and it's so hard to find a good place to train, because the kickboxing guy, I won't name names because I don't want anybody to get upset, but he was the first person that told me, "Oh, this is the closest you're gonna get." It was American style kickboxing, like Bill Wallace.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Superfoot.
he said, "This is the closest you're gonna get to real fighting." And of course, I believed him, and it was a good experience for me. That's where I got my first licks. That's where I got to feel what it felt like to get beat up and stuff. But he also kind of used us, like I remember I was only there like 3 months. And he used to put on these little exhibitions in town. I grew up in Perth Amboy. He had a really big location. I liked the space of the school, but he put on these exhibitions where he would have us teenagers. He would charge $2 at the door. People would come in and sit down and watch us. Not that we weren't even novices, just pound on each other. And he was sitting there making the money. So I still liked it, but when I got to college, he had trouble keeping his place open. So he moved around enough to the point that he couldn't keep a place open anymore, and then I was left without a place to train. So when I got to college, I did some Aikido because a friend of mine wanted to do it, and he found it. And then there was
How was that? Were you like flipping dudes by their wrist and stuff?
Yeah. No, there's actually some good wrist locks. It's funny. I don't think people should knock any martial art. I mean, because it's better to train in something than do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's things in it actually, like the windshield wiper pass that. I like to do that.
Yeah.
Like that they call that knee walking in Aikido Shiko. It's the same movement almost. And then when I defend a choke from the back, I turn the palm out. I got that from Aikido.
Oh wow.
So I turn it out and kind of hand their hand back to them, makes them do this. Mm-hmm. So and it's uncomfortable. So it kind of makes the guy shoo away from you, gives you space to escape.
Yeah.
So
I've been in
it. so I do stuff. You can pick up something from every martial art. But anyway, so Aikido was in college, and then when I moved out of my parents' house, I was really poor. I didn't have a lot of money, so there was 4 years I couldn't train. So when I finally got my feet on the ground again, I was working at the county college, and I met this guy that was Ishinru. He was a brown belt in Ishinru karate, and we had a point fighting team at that college that I wanted to compete.
How many years is this? What is this?
This is a long time ago. This is more than 18 years, 19, 20 years
ago.
What
year would you say? Like the
early 2000, late 90s maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's early 2000 for sure. But anyway, he didn't train. He came to the practice, but he never did any point fighting. I saw him spar with some guy and knock a dude out, and I was like, damn, this point fighting, I want to do that. So I started training with him, and he and I got friendly, and he was like, well, come train with me in Highland Park, and I trained there for 11 years.
Wow.
I got a brown belt in Ishinru. I mean, he obviously got his black belt. But like traditional Okinawan karate can be really bad on your joints and stuff as you get old, so that's why I didn't stick with it. But during that time, when I was like a green belt, a purple belt in karate, is when I started doing jiu-jitsu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because when I got my blue belt, I got my brown belt in the Ishinru. That's what I was still doing both, because I thought I was gonna fight and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's definitely it was a long journey. So yeah, I did some stick fighting too in between, because we used to get people come in and do seminars at the karate school.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Which I know there's a couple. There's like Eskrima, Kali.
Yeah, Arnis.
Yeah.
That's the one I did.
Okay.
But then there's different like there's different branches of each one. Mm-hmm. Like there's families that have their own disciplines.
Yeah.
So, but so I picked up a lot of stuff over the years. But jiu-jitsu is definitely obviously the one that there's adaptability to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you always hear people, you can make your jiu-jitsu, and that's one thing I think that makes it unique from other martial arts. So that's what got me, long story too long already, but yeah, that's how I got into it, and that's why I stick with it and all the stuff I've done.
Yeah, I actually was interested in the stick or knife fighting, but it's really hard to find like a place that it's not as easy as looking for a jiu-jitsu place.
Yeah.
I did try to find one, and it was very difficult. And it's still, to go in, it was very weird. So I just kind of left it alone. And I was like, I'll have some, maybe eventually somebody from the gym that's trained in weapon can help me out, at some point. But yeah, we have so many guys at the gym that do all types of crazy stuff. Yeah. So somebody's bound to pick up knife fighting.
I actually have them in the trunk. I keep them in my trunk. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So you've had gathered all of this experience. Which would you say would be most effective in like a combat self-defense situation?
I mean, I think to mentally prepare your mind to handle like fighting and having to defend yourself in the street, jiu-jitsu gives you that almost right away. Mm-hmm. Brazilian jiu-jitsu gives you with the live training right away. Because there's forms in kata and stuff, but like live sparring, which is why I stayed with Isshin-ryu karate for so long, because my instructor was a big advocate of sparring, and he did takedowns and ground and pound and all that stuff. He was a really rough guy. Mike Toff can tell you about him. Gary Pinicello is my sensei's name in karate, so I was already kind of like used to the live training aspect. But as he got older, he wasn't teaching as much. The classes got lighter. That's what kind of made me gravitate more towards jiu-jitsu, because you're not gonna. The only way to know how to handle yourself, if God forbid you have to use the stuff to defend yourself, is by training your mind to be aware of your surroundings and stuff like that. Yeah. So because you can do forms and you can rehearse movements and stuff, but if you don't feel that pressure or the threat of getting choked or a locker or something, you're not gonna react right. My sensei once said, he talked about people doing gun disarms, and he was like, he's like, what happens? You can practice all these moves and do it, but he's like, but when you hear the deafening sound a gun makes, you will forget that in that instant.
Oh yeah.
So so that whole idea is what I think. That's why I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is probably the best thing for folks to do, especially for self-defense, actually. Because you're not going to get that type of pressure. How many times you and I roll with dudes bigger than us?
Yeah. It's like every day.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that I'm glad it's getting as popular as it is now. Mm-hmm. Because there's still a lot of jokers out there showing nonsense. I know you and I have talked about that at length. Yeah.
I think it's good that you mentioned that. I think when it comes to the self-defense aspect, there's a lot of in jiu-jitsu that can get you in a lot of trouble as well. Mm-hmm. I know you walk around with like a purple belt or a blue belt or whatever, you can almost feel like you're invincible. Mm-hmm. But man, some guys, they just have that knockout power. It just takes one good swing and you're out. So, but I think what is important is that live aspect to it. Yeah. There's not many martial arts where you have to roll live or you have to fight live. So when it comes to, I guess, getting that taste of that real, situational fighting, mm-hmm. you need to do a martial art that actually has real life. Yeah. So probably something like Muay Thai where you're, sparring, or Jiu-Jitsu where you're rolling and doing grappling, or, MMA, which is a combination of everything. But I'm a big advocate for boxing as well. I think having good hands, that's always a very big plus, when it comes to getting into a fight. But and wrestling, you find a wrestler, you're gonna die.
Definitely.
Do a double leg and just slam you on the concrete. So thanks for sharing your input on that. And you did mention that you were, throughout your life, you've gone through a lot of like ups and big downs. I think a big thing in my show that I want to get at is the importance of martial arts in people's lives, mm-hmm. right? You being someone that has gone through a lot, in your life, I don't know if you want to share those things or not, but, how important has martial arts been for you through those really, tough times and that, pretty much, those dark times.
Like, I mean, if I didn't have martial arts, I'd probably dive into a bottle or do whatever the, stereotypical things Latinos do when they're depressed or whatever. But martial arts has been an absolute, I mean, it's the rock, it's everything. I mean, I actually, when the worst things happened to me, I learned early. It was actually Brian was one of the times when I was a blue belt. I remember I was going through some stuff because I used to have anger issues and stuff like that, and I was going through some stuff, and I remember I sat down with Brian and I talked with him about it, and he was just like, you can't let that control you like that. I mean, if you have that energy to get that angry, then you need to train more. Yeah,
Brian's our coach, by the way, for those that don't know, but keep going.
So when he said that to me, ever since that happened, anytime I was down or if you see me a lot, there's probably something bothering me. Or it's nice out and it's the summertime, you know what I mean? But either way, there's always a positive thing. And I never, Brian said, we were talking about this earlier today when we trained this morning, me and Nate. He said something the other day when he left on a Wednesday night. He's like, Ed loves it here because I'm always like hanging out, still doing exercise and stuff because it's almost like, even when we're not rolling, just being in the academy, it's like meditating.
Yeah, it's like a Zen atmosphere.
So if I didn't have, it's the most constructive thing you could do. Even when you feel good, when you feel bad, especially when you feel bad, going to train has been such a, especially with all the stuff I've been through, man. It's just even the recent stuff with the breakup and living by myself and being almost homeless again for that little 9-10 months when I was looking for a place. I was still training a lot. Yeah. And I tore my pec. I remember because I was distracted. I remember I came in early. That's how I tore my pec. I didn't
even know. I didn't know.
Yeah, I came in. It was in the morning, and when I tore my pec, I was trying to do a move, and I tried to muscle it because my mind was somewhere else. It was it was early in the morning, and I was still thinking about stuff. But it just reminded me you leave that outside. You should have been there and
focused.
Yeah. So that's why it's definitely. I always tell people, even if they can't find jiu-jitsu, I'm like, well, what's around you? Do that. Whatever it is, do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know for myself, I went through a lot of stuff back in my 20s. And I think I started training back in May 2010. I went through this, it's a very similar thing, like a terrible relationship thing. And... I went through, bouts of depression and suicide and stuff like that. And, I started training with Brian. And, it was so crazy, man, because at the time, I was getting I needed to get counseling,
yeah, I've been there.
Dude, I needed it, man. Honestly, that guy, his name is Bruce. He was the one that counseled me. There's I put my life on 3 things that, if they weren't there at that time, I probably would have done something really stupid. Yeah. But that's definitely, my relationship with God, the church. Well, 4 things. The counselor, Bruce, and Brian with the MMA. They all had a piece, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if any piece was missing, I think I would have still had some sort of thing that was falling apart, but the MMA and the martial arts, that I needed to fight, man. I needed to compete and get myself, a complete change, and I was coming in overweight and, depressed and all this stuff. And, in many ways, Brian legit saved my life, and, and the academy, the relationships in the gym, a lot of the guys, they don't realize how important they've been, and you think it's we're just coming in the gym and just training,
breaking balls and training.
Yeah, but it's so much more than that, man. It's it's a family, man. And a lot of us are going through stuff. We don't even think about it. We see people coming in, people have bad attitudes and stuff, but man, we're there. And just the fact that we could sharpen each other and talk and kind of just hang out. It's just a way to get away from our it's like getting a vacation for like an hour or two, you know,
Yeah.
from your day to day, you know.
It's the high point of my week, every time I
Yeah.
go. I mean, that's why I try to go as much as I can when I have free time, like with my summer hours and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
now it's 4 times a week, so it's and I'm always in a better mood in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Same here, man. So martial arts is very important. So, you know, for those of you out there that are listening in, if you're going through stuff, Ed highly recommends finding some sort of martial art, that's really helpful for your brain. I mean, you gotta really feel the place out, because a lot of places can be very like macho. And,
and those are the bad places. When I did therapy for anger management for a little over a year, and I read a book. Thomas J. Harbin's the author. I think it's called Living with Anger or something like that. I forget the name of it, but that's the author. And one of the things in the book that bothered me actually was actually advised against doing any type of combat sports training. And I remember this was given to me by the therapist. So when I went back, I said, "Listen, I disagree with that 1,000%." And he was like, "Why?" And he read the thing, and I remember the sentence said, because you're rehearsing violence and violent action. And I'm like, that's not how I view it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm doing these things so that I don't do them. You know what I mean? So that I don't do them without thinking about them. I'm doing these things in an environment where I'm taught what the outcome of doing this stuff is. You know, and with people that know how to let me know they're safe, and I know how to do it safely. You know what I mean? Like, so I completely disagreed with that. And when I explained it to him, he agreed with me too. So I don't know if he like passed that on to other people he was seeing or whatever, but that's one thing that actually, that's why I remember that author's name, because I was like, you don't know what you're talking about, dude.
That's funny, because my counselor was like, "Oh yeah, you definitely need to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you got some, you know, demons inside that you need to get out." He was like, he's like, find something that you really love to do and just put all your, you know, time and energy into it. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So find a good spot that's a good community, you know, a martial arts place that has a very strong community. We both recommend that. So the next thing I want to get into is so I don't know too many people that write in general for newspapers, or, you know, just journalists.
Yeah.
That's a lie. I have one friend who works for CNN, but he doesn't really write pieces or do reports. He's more on the back end side of things. But somebody that actually covers news and stuff like that, I have no idea about that world. I don't know how to get into it. I don't know how you even got into it. Like, how did you even get into that arena? Like, this is like a whole different world. Everybody wants to be a fighter, but like, you were like, I want to cover this stuff, you know? Yeah,
and when you're training and stuff, you don't think that you take everything that you know. Think about every time you're watching, like when you watch the fights with your friends and stuff that don't train. And you see things that they're not seeing.
Oh,
you know?
Absolutely.
So, that's been me for years, because I've followed that sport forever. I followed boxing for a long time, and it was just so oddly enough. So when I got my bachelor's degree, I was just messing around on Twitter, and I saw a friend's tweet. Somebody I know, a guy that plays in a band but he's also a hardcore soccer guy. So I saw him tweet something like, "Oh, check out my latest for Red Bulls," or something. So I said to him, I was like, "How'd you get into that?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, I actually meant to talk to you about it. We need people to do MMA, and I know you know a lot about martial arts and stuff. Would you be interested in doing it?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that's how I got into it. It was for a Canadian website. And this is I'm glad we're recording this, because I love telling this story. So I won't wait. I don't like bad mouthing people, so I won't name the website. So they brought me in. It's going to be funny, because you know the current landscape of the sport now. Mm-hmm. So they brought me in, and I like, for the people listening, I like the sport of mixed martial arts. I don't favor any one promotion. I like the entire sport. Yep. From ACB in Russia to Bellator to the Pro Fight League. They're doing the rebranding starting soon. You know, people right away think of the UFC, but it's bigger than that. Yeah. So these people I was sending them stuff on Bellator. It was before Scott Coker took over. And I'm writing all these articles about what's going on. And then I remember it was funny. It was like the night before Thanksgiving. In the middle of the night, they sent me this email like, thanks for your work. Bye. Like, they fired me. Wow. I was like, whoa. I was like, I was only here for like 90 days. What did I do wrong? Yeah. So I was still in touch with my editor. I contacted him, and he didn't even know about it. He's like, you do great work. What's the problem? And then he got back to me, and he's like, yeah, they don't want you because you don't cover the UFC enough. And I was like, huh. All right. Why? But I knew I liked doing it. So one thing keeping up with a martial art taught me was like, don't quit because somebody tells you they don't want you. You keep going. So I went out. I was already using Twitter because the Twitter's like really, if you want to know about MMA, the social media channel you should be using is Twitter. Yeah, it's really big on Twitter. So anyway, so I was just like, all right. I went looking at other sites coming up, and some site called Page 2 Sports in California was looking to start covering combat sports more, and they brought me on as a contributor. I had an editor that made me take some AP, like online AP writing classes to clean up my writing. She actually paid for them because she had faith in me, and then I wound up over time. I wound up being the editor of the MMA channel for that site for a while, and through them is when I got my first credential for a Bellator event in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. I forget which one. It was the first event under Scott Coker. Wow. Yeah, because I covered like the whole transition and stuff, and I just applied for it. They told me how to apply, and that's how I got credentialed. But so I got into it, just by somebody else talking to me about it, and it's rough though, because like you have to, sometimes you have to write for free, sometimes you have to, give up a lot of your time. Like anything else, what you put in is what you get out. Yep. So I did a lot of stuff for free. And then I started picking up traction because I did analysis, because I trained, I saw things differently. And then just talking with other people in the business, finding out so many people do the same thing. And but that's how I got into it. And then over time, like you just mentioned it when we started, the 205 presser, that's when people started putting a name with the face. Because I used to actually have some weird avatar because I didn't want people to know I did this. Yeah. So I had that weird avatar, and they're like, "Oh, now we know what my Twitter handle's at Carbajal." And so, oh, now we know what Carbajal looks like, and they're putting it on Twitter, and I'm like, "Holy cow!" Like, all right. So then other websites started like, would you like to contribute? And I said, sure. And then slowly they started paying for content, and when I got in with Sherdog, actually they're owned by Crave Online Media, and their head of content reached out to me on LinkedIn. He's like, I've been following you, I read your stuff, we'd like you to contribute and do opinion pieces, which was weird because it was like against what I took in those classes. But they're like, we'd like you to do your opinion pieces, just go free with it. And they said something about I have like a unique voice and unique followers and stuff like that. So, and it's been working out. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah, I guess it was like a domino effect. Everything just lined up, and once you hit the first one, it just kept going. So this is.
Oh, but the funniest part is that that first site that dropped me, to this day they send me private messages on Twitter. We're sorry. Come back. Would you come back? And I just ignore it.
Yeah. Hey man. You missed out.
Yeah. I just ignore it because I'm busy enough, and they weren't paying me. Mm-hmm. But like these other sites pay me, so I'm just like, yeah. I mean, like I'll come back. Show me some numbers, I'll come back. But like I said, I won't name them because they're still around, and they still suck.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So, were you always a writer? Like, did you like writing growing up, or was this something that you wanted to get deeper into MMA? And maybe martial arts, maybe that was your avenue of getting deeper into it, or was it something that you wanted to mix your writing with it? Like how did that play a part in terms of your writing?
Like I said, the way I fell into it, I've always, like, even sitting with people before I got into it, they were like, oh, aren't you gonna fight? You know, I competed in a grappler's quest when I was like over at Chris Bro's before I switched to Brian's.
Oh, I didn't know you trained at Chris's.
Yeah, that's where I started.
That's funny. Yeah.
That photo, there's an old photo of Brian as a blue belt and me as a white belt that was taken at Chris Bro's school.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so when I was there, people were just like, oh, you know, you're competing and you do martial arts. You ever think about fighting? You ever think about fighting? And obviously, you can age out of thinking about fighting. Like, you know, there's a time when you're thinking about it. If you don't do it and you're sitting around thinking about it, it's not going to happen for you. But there's other ways to do it. So when that guy that did the soccer thing mentioned that to me, I said, sure. Because I always have something to say when people talk about fights. I've always been like long-winded about it when we have the conversations.
You have a lot of knowledge. Every time I talk to you, you have a deep knowledge of it.
So, and the other thing is like there's Angelo Reyes. He's Frank Mir's striking coach. He and I interviewed him a couple of weeks, like 2 months ago, right before Frank Mir fought. And when we were talking, he said something about people that contribute to the sport that I found to be true. He's like, MMA is the only sport that I see people where negativity it's a popular thing to do, to bash the sport and the fighters and say things. And that's when he's like, we're actually friends now. We talk regularly. He trains more than Frank Mir. Anna Hulaton, who just retired, she fought Heather Hardy in February at Mohegan Sun. And if you watch that fight, they got booed, both of them. Oh. Yeah. So I wrote a piece it was a positive piece that it was kind of just saying, like, listen, these two ladies, they both do boxing and MMA, and they do it just because they want to do it. They don't fight about money or contracts or anything. There's no long-winded, there's no press tour. They both agreed, let's fight in MMA and then let's fight again in boxing. Like, we don't care who watches. Yeah. So that was the whole point of my article, and he reached out to me on Twitter and that's how he and I made friends. But stuff like that, I like to write positive because I noticed the negative trend. And there's a self-help guy, James Altucher, that I listen to his podcast. He does like a Choose Yourself series of books. So I've read his books and I listen to his podcast, and I actually found out about him through Ice-T's podcast. Ice-T's podcast, where he said, the message of his books is pretty much you're not gonna be successful by being greedy and underhanded and negative. If you do right and you do right for other people, the success will come. Don't sit there and expect it, but just be good about it. And like other writers like Dwayne Finley, he created Flow Combat, and James Lynch, who does a lot of video interviews. Like all these guys are just they're not there to throw shade on anything or anyone. Yeah. They're there just to get these fighters' stories out there because, they don't make money like the way boxers make money. So they need the exposure. And when you think about what a competitive martial artist gives up to follow that life, I mean, you have to treat it like a job. Yep. And you might not make that much money. So they deserve someone to be a voice for them because they're too busy training to do it for themselves.
Absolutely. So. So, I mean, just from hearing you talk about, these athletes and kind of following them, in a sense where you've watched so many fights, you've watched, many people come up, a lot of careers. You've probably seen a lot of guys that were nobodies and now are, big time. Yeah. And I guess just picking your brain, in your opinion, seeing all of these fighters throughout, the time you've been watching, who've been your favorites? Like, who've been somebody you love to watch, you enjoy every single time, you don't have any ill will or whatever negativity towards,
There's outside of the big names that people know, but one that stands out to me because I find myself defending him often, especially when he switched over to Bellator, Benson Henderson.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because he fights smart. He's protecting his brain, and some of the things he does is not necessarily like great TV. So he gets booed and he'll lose a decision or whatever, but he's still healthy and he can compete outside of MMA. He does all his grappling tournaments and stuff. So I like him a lot, and he's a positive guy too. And especially when he was racking up losses, you could tell he was struggling with it. But I like him. I like Dominic Cruz, for the same reason, because Dominic Cruz is somebody that has been public recently about dealing with depression and stuff.
Yeah.
And how martial arts helped him through that. Roger Huerta is just somebody that I found to be athletically gifted.
Yeah.
You know, like
he's in Tiger now, right? Tiger Muay Thai.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he's training there now. He's signed. I think he's got a three fight contract or a 6-fight contract with Bellator now.
Oh, with Bellator. Oh, I didn't know that.
He fought in ONE FC for a little while, then he kind of disappeared. And he made the comeback as an alternate, and he's obviously like still trying to. He's not old. He's got time to put in the sport.
Yeah, I think he was known as like one of the most good-looking guys in MMA.
But he also did things that other fighters didn't think about doing. I forget who he was fighting. It was in the UFC, and he used the cameras to his advantage. I don't know if you remember that fight.
No.
Somebody had his back, and around his waist. And Huerta angled the guy, looked up at the arena camera to see where the guy was so he could elbow him in the head.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was one of these guys that was like, ahead of where everyone else was.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I think he's like a purple or brown belt now, but back then he was beating black belts in jiu-jitsu in the cage. And I remember he said that he was humble about it, but he was kind of like, yeah, well, like, how do you feel about beating black belt? And he's like, yeah, well, no disrespect, but this is not jiu-jitsu. And he was just kind of, his mind was ahead of the game, and I don't know what happened. I guess he just made some weird, he made moves outside of what people were expecting him to do.
Yeah.
Or when he was done with the UFC and he went to ONE, like not too many people know about ONE, and we know about it because we follow martial arts, but there's people that don't know about ONE FC still, and how big they really are.
It's a great promotion.
It is.
They have some nutty
Their app,
things.
they just actually made a new app. I don't know if you checked it out. You can watch the stuff on your phone now.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah.
And I know really they have the ref's view, right? Where he puts a GoPro on.
Yeah.
And then you're literally in the cage with the ref.
Yeah, I think Pro Fight League is going to do that too, because they did that when they were still. For people that don't know, Pro Fight League used to be World Series of Fighting. They're just rebranding.
That's what that is. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
They're rebranding, and they're pretty much doing the tournament format, kind of like what Bellator used to do when Bjorn Rebney ran it.
But the first prize is like 10 mil, right?
It'll be granted at the end of the tournament season, which is going to be like the end of this year.
That's like that movie Warrior.
Yeah, that's actually what I said to Nate when we were talking about it.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's just like the movie Warrior. And their first event's soon, June 7th at the Garden. I got my credential for that today.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'll be covering it. I'll be covering when they're in New York, and they're going to Atlantic City in August, Washington, D.C. in July. So I'll be following them around.
Yeah. Who would you say were the greatest of all time? There's a lot, pound for pound.
It's hard to answer that, because when you look at what the statement, time is still going on, so there's someone else is going to be going on. But within the time that I've been watching, it's like, and I have a podcast that I do as well called Coast to Coast Combat Hour. It's with a guy on the West Coast named Matt Hawkins.
Okay.
So he's in Cali and I'm here on the East Coast in Jersey. But he's a real hardcore Fedor Emelianenko fan.
Uh-huh.
So it's hard for me to say that because he kind of makes me not want to say it. But I did like Fedor for a while. I'm partial to Bas Rutten from the Pioneer era.
Yeah.
Because he's the first guy that explored. He was a Kyokushin karate guy. He stepped out of his comfort zone, came here to learn grappling and wrestling and stuff, and picked up as he was fighting in Pancrase submissions that he used.
Boss is a legend.
Yeah, so
that's the man.
He's one of them for sure. And then, but like, you can't not say John Jones because of he's just naturally gifted, even despite all his trouble.
As much as you don't like him, man.
Yeah, you can't.
Dude.
Outside of fighting, he's obviously a horrible person, but the talent that he has, or not a horrible person, we don't know what type of person he is, but whatever. He keeps making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So, but got those guys, I would say, they're definitely the top. And Daniel Cormier too, because he's just a lifelong competitor. He's an Olympian. And he's also like a positive individual. You know what I mean? Like, he's just one of these guys that shows you it's okay. It's okay it's okay to cry when you lose, because that's just you earn that pain because of the passion you had for whatever it is you lost.
Yeah, man.
So,
absolutely. I think something that a lot of people don't connect with when it comes to watching, almost kind of like watching stars, whether it's within MMA or another sport or whatever, but it's careers, right? Like, maybe in other sports, team sports, you tend to follow a person's career, but in MMA, it's it can be very finicky. The fans, where you have your average, it's like, oh, he's my favorite, and then the next day is like he sucks, and belts get passed around quite often. It's you don't get too many guys that hold the belt for a long time. I mean, you get somebody like GSP, but that's very few and far between.
Yeah.
And someone like Anderson, but you've watched all these guys. You've watched people come up. In terms of career-wise, right? Who would you say has the most successful career? As a someone that's fought in MMA, but still doing well today.
I mean, if you're measuring success by longevity or money, that's a difficult question, because like a lot of people, obviously Conor McGregor did a lot for the sport, and he just bought a Spanish villa today. I saw.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I mean, obviously he's somebody that was on welfare, and now he's buying villas. So that, I mean, but he's also throwing stuff at buses. You know what I mean? So I mean, that's my own.
Could be like the next Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Though I have a theory about that. Like, I think if you get success too fast and you're too young, John Jones is another example. He was 21.
You don't know what to do with it, man.
Yeah, it's like it almost drives him crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then there's people that didn't. Like you just mentioned, George St. Pierre. I mean, he's always been. He's one of the first guys that started wearing suits and stuff to press conferences in MMA.
Mm-hmm.
All the guys used to wear tap out shirts and stuff like that, and he was showing up in a suit to say, "Look, this is a profession, and this is my career, and we have to treat it like that." And now other guys do it. So, I mean, right now, but then you got to look at guys like that just kept it real, like Michael Bisping. He's an analyst too. Mm-hmm. He does all right for himself. He's got his own fantasy sports thing going on.
Yeah.
He's got he's already preparing. But that's the whole thing. Like you have to be aware of the time. I mean, I think the fighters should be aware of the time they have to put in and start looking, rather than like a lot of old school boxers did. They made all this money and they threw it all away. But like now it looks like they learned, like they taught the younger generations to make these investments. Like, I mean, McGregor's doing his production company and stuff. Yeah, he's spending money like crazy, but he's also trying to do other things with clothing lines and stuff like that. So I think guys like that are a good. They're a good template for people to follow for success. The George St. Pierre, Conor McGregor, and who else is doing that? I mean, even Al Atkins is doing it. He's using his MMA platform now to do his selling houses and stuff in Long Island. But he's using it,
Yeah.
So, and then you could always do like Frank Trigg's a ref now. Go with people, oh, look at Frank Trigg and he's reffing.
Mm-hmm.
He fought. Him and Matt Hughes are in the Hall of Fame for their fight that they had at 97 UFC 97 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think just following the moves that they make outside of fighting is a good platform to say someone's successful. So those guys are successful to me.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to get at was because my show's about like guidance for the younger generation, or even anybody just struggling. But I think what I was trying to get at was, since you followed all these guys, you've seen a lot of careers, successful careers, and a lot of failed careers, right? And you just mentioned a bunch of guys that have good templates to follow. Mm-hmm. Within people's careers, I mean, we see tons of drama, right? I think you get even a deeper scoop because you're actually covering this stuff. Yeah. So like, for all these guys, I mean, how many guys come into the gym and be like, "Hey, I want to be an MMA fighter." Yeah. Like they have no idea. Yeah. They don't know. They have no idea what it takes. They have no idea how much discipline is required. They have no idea how much politics is going on. What type of advice would you give them? What are some things that you would tell As somebody that's watching these guys, right, and studying them, what advice would you give to these younger guys that want to fight and do all this stuff, to focus on, and things to watch out for, and things to just stay the heck away from?
As far as focusing and what they should work on, I mean, obviously work on being the best top level athlete you can be. And if you're a Muay Thai guy that you want to be the best striker in MMA, then be that and focus on that. Put in all the hard work for that, because that's what's in the cage. The stuff, I would say, the stuff you should avoid is don't fall into this. I mean, what worked for Conor McGregor is not going to work for you. That's happening a lot now. So many guys are trying to talk trash. And they're not good at it.
And they trash at it.
And they're not good at it, yeah. And it's like, okay, and like even Chael Sonnen says, he's like, yeah, like everyone knows that's his gimmick, that's his character that he does, that's how he gets eyes to watch him, and that works for him. That's not going to work for you. A lot of people know who Fedor Emelianenko is too. He doesn't say a word, but he goes out there and he wins fights.
Yep.
And I think for me, one of the guys coming up for me that everybody should watch is like Brian Ortega.
Oh, dude, Brian Ortega, that's my number one guy right now, bro.
Because he's good. So he's not only is he good in the sport, but outside of it, he's doing things for kids. Yep. I mean, he's just
he's
a positive guy.
Dude.
Yeah, that's a guy that's so he's doing it right on both ends. Because, you don't want to be these guys doing weird things on social media just to get... I mean, it's part of the game, though. Like, you have to have... It's at least the basics of responding to trash talk and all that stuff, but don't make it your thing. You know what I mean? Because when somebody shuts you up and you pick up a couple of losses, then it just doesn't matter,
Yeah.
But, like, look at Fedor lost. Fedor lost that fight in I covered that when Bellator made their first thing to Madison Square Garden last June. And he got knocked out. Matt Mitra knocked him out. And he doesn't say much. I remember people at the post-fight press conference said to him, why do you keep fighting? And his only response was, because I'm a fighter. And all the media, we stood up and clapped because they were like, what a great answer.
Wow.
He didn't knock the loss and he didn't give any excuses. And he's like, yeah, and I want to fight again too. Like, this is my job. So I would say, don't try to be a caricature of what you think sells and markets yourself. There's a welterweight I met when I was in Brooklyn for UFC 223 with the whole bus week thing. I met this guy. He's 2-0 pro, and he's hustling. Like he's telling me he's going to bartending school. His name's Tom Regale, but he fought twice in Bellator. He's got 2 first-round knockouts.
Oh wow.
He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He lives in upstate New York. Drives to Manhattan to train at Henzo's.
That's insane.
Yeah, but that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's the work you got to put in, and he's doing what he can to keep food on the table. But I mean, it's funny because like when I met him, my buddy lets me crash in Brooklyn and New York. I was like, I said, let me go meet this guy. He's a fighter, and my friend's like, he's like, you mean that guy standing over there that looks like a fighter? Because he's there jacked with the cauliflower ears, and I was just like, yeah. And then he said that's when he told me like how he's hustling. And we told him, get on Twitter, just put up training. I said, don't talk trash or talk yourself. Put up your training footage. Let people know how serious you take it. And he's been doing it. And I'm hoping he gets a fight soon. But I kept him. I sent him some stuff with PFL. I mean, if they're trying to get 170-pounders, he's definitely one that they should look into. I mean, that'd be a nice story for a guy, struggling like that to at least to win $10 million. I mean, that's one thing I hope the tournament catches on more because of what the Pro Fight League is doing. I know Ryzen's the only one that does it at the end of the year.
I really like that whole setup. The one prize at the end. Everybody's you got a giant bracket and people are just going.
Yeah, and there's no rankings don't matter, trash talk don't matter. It's everyone starts and whoever makes it to the end. Even Bellator's doing it to get a heavyweight champion this year. So hopefully it catches on.
Yeah, it's a good format. Wow. What about stuff that these guys should be watching out for to just stay away from? Like,
I mean, it seems like with social media, putting too much of what they do in their own private lives can get them in trouble.
Okay.
So obviously, you got to be careful, and that goes just in life in general. Like, you don't want to hang out with bad people, you know, or negative people.
Energy vampires.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so somebody once said, we were having a conversation after training. It might have been you. Like, you pick up the 5 personalities of the people you hang out with the most.
Oh yeah, you are the average of the 5 people. Yeah. in your circle.
So
you want a strong circle.
Yeah. So like and he seems like a decent dude. Like, talking to him one-on-one or outside when you see him at media events, but like, look what happened with Dylan Dennis and how he got asked to leave Marcel's academy because he's spending time with you know, Conor McGregor and those guys, and Conor McGregor does charitable things. He does nice stuff, but like I said, sometimes I think money makes people crazy. But, I think that's one thing they should watch out for. Just what you put out there, and if you're wondering, the people that you're hanging out with are like, should I be doing this right now? It's probably a good indication of you to get away from that person.
That's hilarious. You know what I mean? It's like, is this a good idea? If you're already having that thought, it's probably not a good idea, right?
Yeah. And also
that's some good life advice right there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you caught the news today. Like, Nick Diaz got picked up for domestic violence in Vegas.
I didn't know that.
That's hot. That's the hot trending news right now. When I drove over here. So like, Sacramento police is investigating Nate Diaz for the altercation he had at the Combate Americas event a couple of weeks ago, and now Nick Diaz has this thing he's got to deal with. So it's like, and the whole Thug Stockton 209 thing. I know that's how they grew up and stuff, but you're successful fighters now. Why would you want to keep trying to glorify that to the point that now you're in legal trouble?
Yeah.
So I mean, with his situation, like, that's new. Like I said, it just happened as I was coming over here to record this. So hopefully it's just hearsay or something like that. Because those guys, you know, they try to mind their own business most of the time. So.
Yeah. I think that's some really good advice. It's kind of crazy. I think in the day and age that we live in today, it's like put everything out there. Well, you know, I mean, in one sense, it's like, let's put all this stuff that's kind of, you know, unimportant, you know, out there or whatever, just to get like attention.
Yeah.
You know, you know, you gotta be very careful, right? Like, in just life in general, you know, with anything, you just gotta be careful. Because once it's out there, right? But yeah, so be careful.
And people look for things too the bad thing about the media is, like, they'll look for something. It's like almost like they love negativity, and they'll look for something just to get headlines, and that's something that is so, like, somebody tried to start something between Tyrone Woodley and Mike Perry. I forget what it was, but Mike Perry used the N-word in a tweet to him. And, you know, they're like, you know, like, you just called him the N-word. And Tyrone Woodley was like, yeah, look, he gets a pass. I know how he grew up. That's, you know, whatever. But, like, people were ready to turn it into something. You know what I mean?
I mean,
So it's like, you got to be careful. Like, if you're going to use social media to push yourself as a fighter, market your name, and or sell a fight, then, you know, at least try to do it in the most you can't do positive trash talk, but don't do it in a way that, you know, you offend people or say something crazy.
Tyrese people.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, people respect you when you're just yourself.
Yeah.
You know, just be yourself. You know, I mean, that's how I got my fiance. You know, it's like,
talking about John Jones, that's one thing. Like, when John Jones won the title, people were making fun of him when he tried to be like Captain America, and then he was doing analyst stuff, and they're like, yeah, he sucks at it. He started making fun of him. But then when he started letting himself come out, like, you know what, like, I know I'm the best fighter out there, and I'll take anybody, and the DX suck it, people still love him. They booed Daniel Cormier in New York for the UFC 200 presser. I was there for that too. And they did that in Madison Square Garden at the Hulu Theater when I went there for that press conference. And John Jones was fresh off the car accident thing, and people were booing Daniel Cormier. And I was just like, wow. So being yourself, there's something to be said for being yourself. If that's the type of person you are, and you're not afraid to hide it, people look up to that.
Genuineness. I think a lot of it's because a lot of people are afraid to, portray themselves and who they really are. So when they see somebody do it, it's almost like, whoa, like, that's so awesome. Like, I want that. But unfortunately, there are some guys that, have, in different interesting personas, sometimes it can be negative, sometimes it can be positive, but at the end of the day, I think being yourself, and in learning and evolving, I think when you're a character and you stay that character, as time progresses, that usually that's not a good thing. Typically you want to mature, grow up, and stuff. And I think I watched the last Joe Rogan, John Jones. I think it was his podcast for. I think he's doing like an MMA. I forget what it's called. It's like Joe Rogan MMA experience or something like that.
Yeah.
But, he interviewed John Jones, and it looks like he's learning a lot from all of his nonsense, and he's a young guy. He's still in his athletic prime. He can come back like that, and kill everybody.
And that's the thing too, like, we just talked about when we started talking about this, like when we were talking about how we came into martial arts and how we know each other and stuff, the stuff you went through. Like we were young when we went through that.
Exactly.
You kind of have to walk through some fire to learn how to not get burned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So we're coming close to the end. I wanted to get into advice that you would give to those interested in getting into coverage of media, sports, and stuff like that. How you got into it, you got lucky, I guess, in a sense. Yeah, I don't know, to really call it. Like, you found a connection, it was open doors, an opportunity, and you went for it. And now you did a great job.
Yeah, but it's a grind too.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to. There's a lot of competition. And it's a grind, and like anything, like training. You don't get the black belt by not showing up to class. Yeah. So you have to put in the work. Like I told you before I came here, I had to publish stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's Memorial Day. Everyone's getting ready, barbecue and stuff like that. I have to stay up late at night, writing stuff when fights are over.
So that's the real stuff.
Yeah, that's the hard work that you have to do. And if anyone interested in doing it, it's a weird time in that business because there's this thing they call the pivot that a lot of good writers lost their jobs at like Fox Sports and Vice, Fightland, and they only kept like one good writer at all these places, or not at all.
Jack, oh my gosh, what was his
Jack
name?
Slack.
That's my dude.
Yeah,
but
I think they have other people that write there, but they lost a lot of, like Damon Martin. Me and Damon Martin, he did the UFC for Fox Sports, and now he and I both work at MMA News.
Oh wow,
you know what I mean? And we write for them, but he still has his connection, so he still gets good fighter interviews and stuff like that. And he still does it, even though he lost that. So now he does it he's like me, which seems to be the new thing. Like don't just marry one outlet. If you can do it right for 4, 5, 6 outlets. James Lynch, the guy that does a lot of video interviews, I think he contributes to 8 or 9 outlets right now.
Oh my gosh!
But he's actually was able to quit his day job to do it. So that's like the goal for me.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like anything else, you just have to keep doing it. But to get started in it, find somebody that's like-minded, that wants to that takes it as serious as you do, and is willing to be a professional with you. Even if you're not making any money off of it, you gotta treat it like a job, and always be professional. Because there's people, I can tell you, that are doing it and are just they're horrible at it, and they're not in it for the sport or the fighters or the promotions. They're in it so they can take selfies in the arena and say, hey, look at me.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that it's actually frowned upon. I mean, it's unprofessional. I mean, you can't fanboy out. It's funny that I'm talking about it because the guy I just mentioned, James Lynch, he has a really good podcast he does on Fightful Online called the MMA Industry Podcast. And he interviews people like the way we're doing this now, and that always seems to come up because there's people that do it, and they're kind of annoying. Like when you're there to do your job, and they're trying to chat it up with you. Like I've actually had to say, like, you mind if I watch this fight? Because I'm trying, like, you're talking to me about stuff in my ear, and I'm here to cover. Like I'm here because the promotion was nice enough to grant me a credential, so I can sit cage side. And you want to hang out like it's a party for yourself. You know, that's really annoying to them and to the people that, like myself, that are trying to make something out of it.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're going to do it, be serious about it. You can have fun with it. I have fun with it. I enjoy it. Actually, I never get tired on fight night. Surprisingly enough, like that's like almost a 10-hour day.
Yeah.
And you know, you're sitting next to I get out of these arenas like at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because we're on the East Coast when they finish. And I'm not tired until I get to the hotel room, you know. That's when it hits me, but because I love it so much. But you have to treat it like that. I mean, there's people. I got stories, man. There's so many. Like I remember one guy eating an ice cream cone, and it's like he went and got an ice cream cone and dropped this thing all over it. And it's like, you're not there to hang out, bro.
Gosh,
people that drink in the media row, it's like, come on, man. I mean, some promotions are really good about tossing them right away, and you never see them again. That was the thing. Jose Young's over at Fanside. He's the editor there. When they were talking about it, because you can send questions in when they're doing the live podcast. So since I know them, I asked them. And I said, "Look, how do you let those people know?" And he said, "You know what? You can let them know however you want, but eventually you won't see them anymore." Yeah. And he's right, because the guy with the ice cream cone, I've never seen him again. Mm-hmm. But some people, it's like, you know, you're lucky enough. You found a way to finagle in and get yourself a credential. And you're trying to have your own little private party and put it on Snapchat and say, hey, look at me. I would say absolutely don't do that. Take it seriously. Treat it like a job. The money will come, you know, if you do that.
Yeah. What about, like, getting into that realm? Do you reach out to these websites and say, hey, I would like to, you know, write something? Like, how do you even get that opportunity? I know for you, somebody reached out to you, but
but then when I had to go hunting on my own after that thing happened,
how did you go about hunting?
You can go to most of these websites that you go to. If you scroll past their headlines and stuff, you'll see a contact us section, or they'll even say write for us. Oh, okay. And you click in that, submit your info. Somebody will get back to you, and they'll say, send me some drafts, send me some samples of your work, or send me something, or write me something. And you know, they'll look it over, and you know, they'll let you know, like, hey, come on board, you know. And the more work you put out, the more people will know. Even if you're like, I don't consider myself that well known, but when I go to events, people call out, hey, my Twitter handle, hey, Carbajal, what's up? And I actually started responding to it recently, because now I'm just like, oh, hey, what's up, man?
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, but like, you're not doing it to get famous or whatever, but they're acknowledging that they know your work. Mm-hmm. You know, like I do these for the pay-per-views. I do this thing called MMA Forethought, and then it's the number of the UFC 223. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just my prediction piece or whatever I do for them. But people read them and say, "Oh, I really liked it." "Oh, you're pretty close. You're pretty spot on." Or, "Hey, you messed up." You know, like, and but it's nice to hear that people are reading it. Yeah, you know, and then they know you from that. Work. Yeah. So it's like, it's a grind. Like, no one's gonna know it if you write it and do nothing with it. Like, if you write something down and then you put it. I had a friend that wrote a lot. Guy I went to high school with. He was a really good writer. He wrote a lot, but he wrote it and he put it in a book and. And it's like nobody, you know, he would let me read it. Yeah. But I'd always say, do something with it. No. It's like, all right, well, so once you get in anywhere, even if it's a no-name website,
you have somewhere to begin.
Just get your content out there, and then use social media to get people to read your stuff. Like I said, Twitter's really big.
Having a strong Twitter.
And that's why Twitter is so big for writers, because it's like, here's my latest piece. You know, let me know what you think. You ask for feedback, interact with people. There's a comments thing usually on the site itself. I mean, I get flamed on Sherdog. People take my stuff apart. Like, what do you know? What do you know? Even though in my bio it says, 20 years trained in Black Belt Jiu Jitsu. Oh, you don't know anything. I'm like, all right. I mean, and I know that's probably coming from a guy 300 pounds. You know what I mean? Greasy. But it's like, but I mean, you know, I let it roll off my back, and I'm happy to discuss it with them, though. But then, even if the person is like a troll or a hater, they're like, you know what, though, he talked about it with me, so I'm gonna read his next article. You know? Yeah. So it's definitely, I mean, you gotta have a thick skin too, because I've been called some you know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
You have to have a thick skin, and then sometimes, you know, and you can't take anything personal, especially during fight week. If you're going to do combat sports like fighters cutting weight, because you competed yourself and you cut weight. You're not always in the best mood. You're hungry.
Oh my gosh, I'm just like, shut up, everybody.
Don't mention food.
Get over me.
Yeah, so I remember Roy McDonald. It was at UFC 189, that fight that he had. It was that week, the fight that he had with Robbie Lawler, that everybody one of the best
that was
ever.
like one of the best fights in history, man.
But he came out of one of the media things with a jug of water, and some guy was like, "Hey, Roy, you gonna get your autograph?" And he just did one of these. And I know from training and knowing guys that cut weight and stuff, I'm like, yeah, he's struggling, so like let him cool off and get to his fight. You know,
one of my favorite cutting weight stories was with Brian and Ricardo. Ricardo Romero was one of our fighters that made it to the UFC out of advanced, and
he beat Seth Petrozzulli. A lot of people don't recognize.
That was a crazy.
That's the guy that beat
match.
Kimbo Slice, so that's a good win for Ricardo.
But man, what a funny story. So they were going off to make weight, and then Ricardo was in his sauna suit, and Brian's cranking up the heat in the car. They're driving. And then Brian's like, "Oh, I gotta get something from the store real quick." He comes back with a full, like 18-inch sub or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And he's just eating it in front of Ricardo, and you just see Ricardo just getting crazy. Like, oh my gosh, yo, Brian don't care. Yo, Brian's so funny, man. Dude, Brian is so funny, bro. Yeah, I love it though. But yeah. So the last thing is what I always like to end off with is what is something quirky about you? Like, you do writing, you watch a ton of fights, ton of MMA stuff and boxing, you follow all these things, and then you train yourself. You train jiu-jitsu, and you do all your strength and conditioning work and all that kind of stuff. What's something that people would never be able to put like something on you? It's just like, I mean, Nate was like, oh, he plays PUBG. I think the biggest one was Ron, when he was like, he's a big fan of Magic the Gathering. I was like, what? But something quirky about you.
That's a good question, because I feel like I let the writing take over. I mean, the martial arts take over so much lately. I haven't really ventured out into. I'm writing some. I mean, we're still writing though. So I'm a big fan of horror.
Oh, okay.
Like, I love horror films.
Like B horror flicks, like
any horror, indie horror.
Okay.
Actually, one of the
I
things,
am too. I love horror, but
one of the things that helped me understand web publishing as like the way it works was when I was finishing college, I took a digital marketing course, and one of the things they had you do was make a website, a simple website. So I did that. I still have it up, and that's where I go to write about horror movies and stuff like
funny.
that. It has an MMA section too that obviously it kind of floods the site sometimes, but like, I get credentialed for horror conventions and Comic Cons and stuff like that.
That's so funny.
So I like that stuff though. I like all the geek stuff. I mean,
what's some of your favorites?
From what? From
the
my horror film? My absolute favorite horror film is John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982.
Oh, that's like, that was one of the wildest movies, right? That was the one when they were stuck in the Arctic or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then, that movie.
I have the board game.
So trippy.
Yeah.
Dude, that movie was insane.
So, like,
they try to recreate it too, I think.
Well, it's not that's a common mistake.
Oh, okay.
That film, the 2012 film that you're referring to, which is also called The Thing, is the prequel.
It's the prequel.
So you can actually watch that movie and then watch the 1982 movie, and it's one continuous.
Oh wow, that's insane.
Yeah, and they did it so well that there's the things that happened in that 2012 movie. They actually matched it shot for shot to things in the 1982 movie. So, like, there's an axe in the wall that Kurt Russell finds in the 1982 movie, and they show how that axe get put in the wall in the 2012 movie.
Wow.
So it's crazy that movie from 1982, has this 2012 movie as its prequel.
Yeah.
But they do a really good job of it. I mean, and the movie, because so many people thought it was a remake, it didn't get the exposure that I wanted it to get. But like as a hardcore fan of that movie, like I actually have the box Blu-ray, the two movies together.
Yeah.
Because I'll sit, like when I'm snowed in the winter, when we get the bad storms we get around here, I'll pop them in and watch the whole thing straight through. But it's all storytelling, so it always goes back to writing for me.
Yeah.
So I'm actually working on a book myself, a work of fiction.
Oh, really?
And it's I'm not to give away too much, but it touches on horror, but it's like a detective story.
Okay.
And I haven't been able to finish it because I'm always keeping up with MMA and writing for 4 sites. The book's been shelved for now.
Yeah.
But I'm almost done with it.
Well, I definitely want a copy of that because that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when you create something, there's pieces of yourself in it.
Yeah.
Like this thing you're doing, this is obviously because of your journey through martial arts and stuff like that. So there's a piece of you in it. So like, even though this is a work of fiction, there's pieces from my life in it. There's characters in the story that you'll be like, hey, is that me?
That's me.
yeah. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing the episode. I always, lots of wisdom from you. What, if you don't mind, like, how old are you?
I'll be 43 in October.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible. You know, you have a very long journey with martial arts. And,
half my life, man.
Yeah. And then now you're, dive deep into the whole covering everything and with MMA. It's pretty incredible, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you including me in this because when you told me about this project, I was definitely excited to hear you doing it, and then when you asked me to be a part of it, I was honored to do it. And
I appreciate it.
Always an honor to train with you too. So thank you so much. Yeah.
So, what was your Twitter account again? I'm probably gonna put it in the description.
It's at Carbajal, Carbazel.
Okay.
And then if you want to follow any of my coverage of the sport, obviously frontproofmedia.com is they mostly do boxing, but I carry MMA there. My MMA News, MMAnews.com, and Sherdog is probably the oldest. Everybody knows Sherdog.
Yeah.
Sherdog.com. I do my they have my op-eds the middle of the week every week.
Oh, that's awesome. So now you get a face to the writer, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny is Jack Slack. I still don't know what he looks like. I don't think anybody knows what he looks like.
He does that on purpose.
Yeah, he's like a legit hide.
That's one thing. Like people don't want to like if you're gonna get credentialed, eventually your face is gonna get on TV. Yeah. I've been on TV more than I want to. Mm-hmm. I shared it on Facebook the other day. Bellator 163. I was shooting cage side for that, and I'm not a photographer, but it's just so happened they're like, this is how we can get you in. And I had a camera, so I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But like I was on TV, and I'm like, damn it, I actually don't like being on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I don't like being recorded and stuff like that. But now I'm used to it, so now I don't care anymore.
Well, yeah, you're definitely getting recorded now.
Oh yeah, I know. But like now I'm used to it, so now I'm like, all right, yeah, you can see my ugly face. So that's fine. That's fine. Hopefully it gets me girls.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for the show.
Man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, get home safe. All right. So we're good. What's up, everyone? Thanks so much for watching the episode. If you liked what you saw, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and definitely share because you never know who this could help. If you'd like to buy any of the products that were discussed, the links are all available in the description below under the video. Make sure to use my links so that I can get paid. And if you'd like to further support what I'm doing, you can send me Bitcoin and Litecoin to my wallet addresses that are also in the description. Thank you all again so much for watching and your support for the project. Peace!